Politically charged students at Illinois State University are united on one thing: division. A recent study obtained by NPR shows people between the ages of 18 and 34 feel that many aspects of their lives will be better than that of their parents, but 1 in 3 feel they will have a harder time getting a government that capably represents them and their values. WGLT student reporter Braden Fogerson profiled several Gen Zers on the ISU campus. He asked about their frustrations about politics and government and what they want to hear from the candidates who want to serve them. It's part of WGLT's series, Democracy's Future.
Chloe Yost is a member of Gen Z, and discussions about politics far too often turn up unfruitful.
You're not getting anywhere. You're not changing anybody's mind. You're actually creating more resentment on the other side.
Yost is a sophomore history education major from Manhattan, Illinois. She's a member of ISU's Emerging Leaders program and is involved with campus ministries. Yost identifies as a political conservative. She says that sometimes shocks people, given that she is African American.
Because to me, my skin color doesn't mean anything. Like, it's just, I got some melanin. That's it. And it doesn't say anything about me. Obviously, there are a few things that you can probably look at me and assume I would believe, like Black people should have rights.
One issue does not always make up one's decision on how they align politically, and for Yost, it comes down to several key issues.
Conservatives typically support the Second Amendment. I support the Second Amendment. Conservatives are usually anti-abortion. I'm anti-abortion. And now, when it comes, and then people usually bring up Black Lives Matter. I agree with the statement, but the execution was not okay with me. Because, like I said, they were raiding buildings and they were rioting.
Yost does not believe rape should be an exception for granting an abortion. In her opinion, the rapist should be punished without punishing the unborn. As it stands currently, a national sample of more than 4,000 women shows the rape-related pregnancy rate is 5% among women and girls aged between 12 and 45. Of those pregnancies, almost 6% result in adoption.
I lived in the foster care system. I've lived it firsthand, and I know it's not great. I don't need anyone to tell me it's not great.
Yost believes that this problem could be solved if the money Planned Parenthood receives is instead put into the foster care system. ISU graduate student Stephen Lazaroff from Orland Park also got his start in politics by looking at it from a conservative perspective. There was a turning point in his life that led him to reconsider his political beliefs. The shift was sparked when Lazaroff was confronted with a sign in support of a pro-gay marriage referendum when he was a student at the University of Miami in Ohio.
I wasn't a bigot, but I definitely had bigoted beliefs, right? Mainly just because I was uncomfortable and I didn't know how to deal with it. So what happened was I became very uncomfortable when I saw that, and I then became uncomfortable with my discomfort.
Another key moment for Lazaroff was when he first got arrested. Lazaroff was in Chicago during the 2011 Occupy Wall Street movement.
That was really truly a moment of radicalization for me because people were putting up tents and people were going to stay there as long as they could. So they were going to take trespassing arrests. And so the question was put to me, I put the question to myself, am I going to get arrested for the first time?
Lazaroff decided to stay and was then arrested and taken away, along with hundreds of other protesters. By now, Lazaroff is a PhD student and member of the ISU Grad Workers Union. He now considers himself a part of the contemporary abolitionist movement.
It comes out of the kind of original abolitionist movement that we think about in the 19th century, fighting to end chattel slavery.
Lazaroff, who is white, says that the movement continued through W.E.B. Du Bois, who argued that slavery continued by another name following the Reconstruction era.
It embodies itself in white supremacy, the police murder of black folks.
Lazaroff adds it goes further today than just trying to end those issues, but toward creating a whole new world because of how deep those issues are embedded in society. To Lazaroff, the most important issue at hand is political involvement.
I want people to care about fighting fascism, not just every 2 years or 4 years, but to see the connections between the fascism of Trump and, it is difficult to say, but the fascism of Biden. Look at the amount of prisoners we have in this country. That is an everyday fascism.
Lazaroff names the climate crisis, homelessness, abortion rights, and white supremacy as issues to be addressed this election cycle. To him, the expected Biden-Trump rematch could never result in a solution to those problems.
I'm probably in the minority on that because I'm on the left and I'm a Marxist. But for me, the two of them are not as different there are a lot of issues with everyday American life that we don't interrogate because they're just so natural.
Frustrations over the two leading presidential candidates are also felt by Ben Howell, a junior mass media and history student from Coal City.
Every study I saw was an overwhelming amount of voters said that they absolutely didn't want, but what we're getting at.
Howell says he feels that the attack on the U.S. Capitol on January 6th, 2021 remind us that there are still some hostilities between Americans.
Like the very notion of that event kind of showed the potential, at the very least, that we would have to get rid of some of our democratic values. Or even historically, we haven't always ethically practiced democracy either.
Howell says he wouldn't argue for any abrupt changes to how the government is elected, though he says there are flaws in the way democracy is practiced in the United States.
We're here for nearly 250 years, and countries that come after want to set up their government like ours sometimes. It's pretty effective as it is.
Howell argues that one of the most purely democratic ways to make change is through referendum, when people vote directly on a potential policy change rather than electing an official who promises to do so. Democracy functioning in that form, especially at the local level, would be why Howell still feels strongly that every vote matters in an election. J.N. Benson, the director of the ISU chapter of the American Civil Liberties Union, also believes in the strength of democratic participation. Benson learned about politics through her parents' discussions, starting with the 2008 election of Barack Obama.
My parents didn't always agree politically. I didn't always agree with my parents politically, but having open dialogue and promoting those kind of conversations at the dinner table or wherever we were allowed for me to formulate my own decisions.
One way Benson was able to put her knowledge to the test was through her participation at Model UN, first in high school in the suburban Chicago community of Homewood, then later at ISU. The experience taught her how different making change becomes when it requires collaboration.
There's nuances, there's levels. You can't just have it your way and just fix the world all at once. There's a lot of things you have to consider, and it kind of made me more mature in my mindset as far as what I can do as just one individual.
As a political science major, Benson does not necessarily agree with the idea of leaders prioritizing certain political goals over others in regard to social issues. She believes failure to address any could be detrimental to the country, but Benson feels most strongly that change could be made by removing inequity from voter access.
Making election days a holiday was a really good move to allow for other people to vote, and I really do see the discrepancies in voting by populations.
It remains to be seen whether that will get more young people to the polls. A recent poll shows a majority of voters aged 18 to 34 are not sure they will vote in the general election this year. I'm Braden Fogerson.
You can hear more of our conversations about democracy with ISU students on our podcast series, Democracy's Future, a partnership between WGLT student reporters and the Vidette, the university's student media. New episodes drop every 2 weeks.